And the title of this morning is Moving Beyond Our Stories, but some of you are going, I love my story. I love my life right now, or I love where I've been before, but you know the truth. Number one, we are creators. We're in an evolutionary universe, so we're to be creating all the time. So if we love our story right now, that's wonderful. It means you're fantastic creators. But there's more, because there's always more. Remember, behold, I make all things new. So right now, if your story isn't quite what you want it to be, the same holds true. We are creators, and there's so much more that's calling us, I want to live. And if we don't feel like that right now, because we might be a little tired, a little exhausted, a little confused, it's because we haven't found the balance yet, that we can keep life in that beautiful momentum of relaxation and joy and giving and receiving, and in that beautiful balance. But we want to talk about stories this morning. So what I want you to think of, what story am I sitting in right now? Well, not me, you. What story are you sitting in right now? Because we're all born into a story. Our family story, our cultural story, our religious story, our community story, our race-conscious story, that's the stories of all times that we're sitting in. We have all those stories that are part of us. But the beautiful thing is that we are the authors, the creators, and we are the directors of our own life and our own story. So we want to think right now, are we sitting, creating an expansive story or a limited story? Because stories have such an important part in our lives. They bring history forward, they hold the past and let us share with generations below us, before us, around us. They allow us to ask questions. They can take us out of the humdrum of life. Do you love when you see a good movie? I don't know what kind you like, because we all like different movies, but is your life a romantic comedy? Is it a thriller? Is it a downer? Which one is it? Because we can rewrite it. We can put things in different places and make it new. Because stories are either expansive on one end or limiting on the other. And one story I think everybody knows about is the creation story. The story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, the earthly paradise. The river of life is flowing through the Garden of Eden, so it's lush and beautiful and all the food you could want to eat. And God said, enjoy it. Be happy. But don't eat the fruit off the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Don't do that. Well, don't tell a human not to do something. They blame the serpent, but the serpent was just let him there. That wasn't the problem. We're curious beings. You tell us don't, and we want to know what don't means. So of course they ate from the fruit. And of course, that began the doctrine of the fall of man and the original sin. Well, what kind of story does that tell us? I'm a sinner. I don't believe that. I wasn't born a sinner. We in metaphysics believe the serpent is the life principle. The life principle that wants us to grow and expand and know. And that serpent was leading Adam and Eve to free will and the power of choice. That we could have the free will to make our own choices and learn from the consequences. Can you imagine if we didn't have free will? If we couldn't choose? Oh my gosh, we'd be like little robots, we wouldn't even know what was good and not good because we didn't have anything to compare it to. So we choose and as Matthew Fox told us so beautifully, we are the original blessing. We've been given everything right now. And as Mother Teresa said, if we have no peace in this life we're living right now, there's only one reason. It's because we have forgotten that we belong to each other. We belong to each other, and we have to start creating a new story of connection. Now, Emily read that beautiful piece from Father Boyle's new book. We had the blessing of going to see him on Friday night at St. Timothy's Catholic Church. He is an amazing man, filled with such a sense of humor. You can understand why he can take any situation and bring people together, because laughter does that. But he has such a huge heart. And he was born in East LA, in Boyle Heights. Isn't that interesting? In Boyle Heights, and his name is Father Boyle. I thought that was quite interesting. But he said he had a really peaceful family. There were 7 kids, a great mom and dad. Even though there were gangs around in the area, he wasn't involved in any of that. He lived a great life. He was called to ministry, so he went into his theological studies. And after his theological studies, because he came from East LA, I'm sure, as a Jesuit priest, they gave him a Jesuit church, right in Boyle Heights, right in the midst of East LA, the poorest Catholic church in the city that was right in the middle of 2 neighborhoods and surrounded by many, many gangs. And here he was as the priest. But instead of building higher walls, he built bridges. And as you said so beautifully, thank you for preparing that soil, he created places to change lives. And he said the one thing, in his book, Tattoos on the Heart, which is the first book he wrote, he said the one thing we have to do is change our suspicion that some people matter more than others. And once we do that, we can start bringing the world together, because we know everyone matters. Everyone makes a difference when we let them. So what brings me on that end, he's doing his work out here in the world. One thing that really ignites me to a greater understanding are the mystics. I love the mystics. You know my favorite mystic, but that's not the one I'm going to talk about right now. The great mystics taught us that we should have no burdens. Do you believe that? Opportunities to learn, yes. A little discomfort, yes, but we should have no burdens if we would just turn to the one, which is God, which is love. So this morning I want to smatter some mystical words of wisdom from mystics throughout the ages that teach the same thing that Father Boyle was teaching. He said there's 4 things I live by: inclusion, nonviolence, if you look on our wall, love and acceptance, compassion and kindness. He lives by those things, and that's what the mystics teach. So St. Francis of Assisi, a 12th century mystic, said, I think God might be just a little bit prejudiced. Once he asked me to join him on a walk through this world, and we gazed into every heart on earth. And I noticed he lingered just a little bit longer on those that were weeping and before the eyes that were laughing. And sometimes we passed a soul in worship, and God too would kneel. I have come to learn God adores his creation. The priest and the prostitute, they weigh the same in God's eyes. So that sounds so good and so beautiful, but we all struggle with stories of prejudice about ourselves, about others, because we're not only children of God, right? So we're imbued with all this good stuff, but we're also children of humanity. So we have a ton of blind spots, right? Things we think are different, things we think are wrong. We have these prejudices about ourselves. I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not, no. And, if we think that about ourselves, of course we're going to think that about other people too, because when we build boxes, as Hafez, the mystic Hafez says, when we build prisons, cages around ourselves, we start building them around everybody, because we project what we are. So we build these boxes around ourselves of limitations, thoughts of limitations that we picked up maybe from the stories we grew up in. We build these boxes around us. And you know what? We have arguments of limitation. We can argue so well why we deserve to be unhappy. Well, yes, I'm poor because I'm not worthy enough. There's not enough good to go around. We have plenty of arguments of error, right? Does anybody relate to that? We have ways we can prove why, man, I can tell you why I'm not happy now. You know what that person just said to me? We've got plenty of fingers pointing out there, but we have to realize we got a lot more pointing here. We got a lot more pointing right here, and we've got work to do because these boxes keep us confined into small lives, and we're not here to live small lives. As Mother Teresa said, once again, Mother Teresa, another Saint Teresa, another mystic, she said all of us can't do great things like the beautiful mentors and giants we have on our wall, but we can do small things with great love. And that's what matters. It's those small things with great love. So we have to be figuring out, how do we get out of these boxes that we've built around ourselves to live small lives, limited lives? I'm going to tell you what. If we don't have something to reach for, you know what I mean? Something bigger than ourselves to reach for, we're going to stay in those boxes. I mean, I know most people here, I know you, and I know the good you do in your own lives in the world. If you could just ask somebody, your neighbor who's sitting next to you, what do you do to make your life matter? To be bigger than that box and that story you tell. What do you do? And I bet you see a smile on their face because they're doing good for someone else. They're making a difference in the world. Father Boyle was saying the biggest way to get people out of their story, I don't think he said story, but the problem in their life, is to have them start with service. Start doing something for somebody else. You know, God, if he were right here talking to us like he talked to St. Francis, he'd be saying, I've already given you everything. Can you get over it? I've given you everything. I've imbued inside of you the access to infinite possibility, which Ernest Holmes said, that power for good greater than we are, that power for good that's ever available, always ready and available. When we're ready, we have to realize it. We have to reach for it. We can't sit on the couch and expect our life to be bigger. We have to start opening ourselves to something more. So here's a little mystic wisdom. This is from Meister Eckhart. He says, how long will grown men and women in this world keep drawing in their coloring book an image of God that makes them sad? It's a lie, any talk of God that doesn't comfort you. We all would like a little better story. Some of us just need a bigger, better God to be thinking about. We can't know all of God, but we certainly can experience and understand the good and the feeling we get when we put our problems on the altar of faith and they transmute and they lighten up. Meister Eckhart was a 13th century mystic. Teresa of Avila, an Italian saint, 16th century, says, just these two words God spoke changed my life. Enjoy me. Enjoy me. Don't suffer because of me. Enjoy me. Those two words. She went on to say, love soothes, rounds, and perfects us as the river does to the stone. There is no place our beloved is not flowing. But listen to this part. Though the current's force may not always be what you like, the river of God is always flowing and directing us towards our good, but it isn't always what we like. So what should we do? What should we do right now? Because if you're feeling, I want to live, I want to grow, I want to do something, where do I go, what do I do? Well, first of all, we have to know it's possible. We have to know it. We have to look, as Emily said was written in beautiful Father Boyle's book, we have to look at what's going on in our life and be aware and say, where can I make my story bigger and better? Where can I do something more? We have to know it's possible. And then we have to say, am I doing the work to expand my mind and my consciousness? Because when we expand our thinking, what happens? things change for the better. So when we open ourselves up to the greater good, there's something more that goes on. We have to open to something more. Get out of the box. It's that story, come to the edge. No, it's too high. Come to the edge. No, I'm scared. Come to the edge. They did. They flew. That's faith. That's trust in something more than we are. Are you going to classes? Are you reading spiritual books? Do you have a prayer partner? Do you see a practitioner? Are you walking in nature to commune with Spirit? What are you doing to open yourself up to something more? Well, I'll give you a little mystic speak. Now, this is just one of the mystics I hadn't heard of, but in this book it says he's one of the greatest poets in history that urges us to live a life of passion. Guess who it is? Rumi! Rumi says, pray with passion. With passion, pray. With passion, work. With passion, make love. With passion, eat and drink and dance and play. Why look like a dead fish in the ocean of God? Doesn't that sound like Rumi? You would have gotten it if I hadn't told you. You would have gotten it. He goes on to say, and this is a little more introspective on his part, he says, if God said, Rumi, pay homage to everything that has helped you enter my arms, there would not be one experience in my life, not one thought, not one feeling, not one act that I would not bow to. Everything happens for a reason. You are made exactly as God intended for each and every one of us. We are here for one main purpose, and it's the overarching theme that all of the mystics who have that. The reason we like the mystics, I wasn't always there, but we like them because they just have a direct connection to God. It doesn't matter their religion, their faith, their culture, it doesn't matter. They just have a direct connection. That's why we like them. That's why I like them. I hope you like them, because I'm going to read some more. But Hafez said, I am made whole by your life. I am made whole by your life. Each soul, every soul completes me. It's not some, it's everyone. So we start with service and put ourselves out there, which I know you do. If Aida were here, she is here, but she's out there sitting, she'd tell you how many people it takes to work on a Sunday to get everything working, and throughout the week. We know service. I know service out in the world, around the world. The whole planet is touched by people here that are doing good works. I know that. But it starts with service that stems from kindness and wanting to grow. It stems from that. And what it ends up in is this word that we all know matters so much, and that's compassion. Compassion and love. So I'm going to share last 3 of these beautiful mystics. Catherine of Siena, 14th century mystic, says, vulnerable are we like infants. We need each other's care, or we will suffer. Rabia, an early female mystic in the 8th century, states, my eyes keep telling me something is missing from all I see. Try saying that. Something is missing from what I see. If you see a problem, if you see a difficulty, if you see a prejudice, if you see a problem, say something is missing from what I see. Something is missing. So I went in search of the cure. The cure for me was God's beauty, and the remedy was love. St. Francis, 12th century mystic, says, God came to my house and asked for charity. I fell on my knees and cried, Beloved, what can I give to you? What can I give? You can imagine, what can I give to you? Just love. He said, just love. If we don't find peace in our life, it's because we've forgotten we belong not only to each other, but part of this majestic, beautiful whole of life that we call love, that we call God, that we call goodness. It's time for us to connect. I'm going to invite you in this moment just to close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, open your hearts to something greater in this moment. If there is, right here, any limiting idea or story you're aware of in this moment, just know that the key to it is greater understanding, greater love for yourself first. Just unlock that story and place that limitation, that problem, that prejudice, that judgment on the altar of God's love to be transmuted into something beautiful, to be transmuted into an understanding, a blessing, a joy, a satisfaction, a knowing, a calling for something greater. This day is the day that you and I have the power to create a whole new world. We get the opportunity to create something wonderful by making choices to grow, to live, to expand, to love, to connect. In small ways, in great ways, in little ways, in big ways. There is no size in the mind of God. It's all love. It all is all good. It all matters. I just want you, each of us right now, to feel the blessing of Spirit as it encompasses us, encircles us, and allows us to let go and let God be God as each and every one of us. Take a nice breath in and know that who you are completes this beautiful essence, this energy, this light that we call God. How good it is. We say thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is. I just know for each and every one of us, this day is blessed, that you are a blessing. And as you leave today, not now, we still have more music and offering and things, but as when you leave, that you go out there with more open, more available, more loving, and knowing how much you matter. You matter to me. I love you deeply. And so it is. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.